car on 4 jacks. Gonna start working on the brakes. I'm gonna do new pads, new rotors, and I want to spray the calipers. Original plan with the calipers was to remove them completely, which of course means removing the banjo bolt, disattaching the fuel line. I had a string lined up. Original plan was to disconnect and then hang the hose up high as I could, but more research shows that will continue to drip. And while I do plan on flushing the brake fluid, I do not want to run the reservoir dry or to have it all completely leak out. So I think new plan is clean as best I can here with some brake fluid, some brake clean and some soapy water, get it nice and clean, and then mask everything up, paint it on the car. Don't really have to worry about the rotor because that's getting replaced. So tape up the other stuff as much as I can, and then put on the new pads and rotors. Would have liked to done it outside of the car, but I think that's more trouble than it's worth. On top of that, I do not have new crush washers, so I worry about reusing those as well. So we'll see how this goes, and I'm sure it'll look better. And really the whole goal is the new pads and rotors, and then painting the caliper is just a bonus. So I'm not too stressed about that. Performance first, appearance second, but we'll see how it goes. Rotor cleaned up with a wire brush and some brake cleaner. Definitely looks better. It's almost tempting to just leave it like that. Let's see. This is the driver's front. So I've decided to mask up and then paint the caliper on the car. Mask that crazy, taking no chances. We'll paint and then let the paint dry and then actually install the new pads and rotors. This way I don't really care if I get paint on the rotor or the pads because those are being replaced anyway. So everything masked off. Had these old tire bags. You could use garbage bags, newspaper, whatever you got, but I had these. They're big. Should work. Looks pretty good. Do another coat or two and all done. Nice. Obviously not worried about the paint on the rotor or the back of the pads because those will be replaced anyway. I feel like this was the correct call to leave the caliper, or rather the brake hose, connected and not have to deal with that. Obviously I masked off and taped really well. I went ahead and painted this air duct as well. This is a 17 mil. Obviously I loosened it already. I used my impact wrench because I could. It was pretty tight with just regular wrench. But. Okay, this is a 17. Cut that obviously. This is a 14. As you can see, I can now remove the pads, but I need to remove this. Jump into the rear now. If you can see, I have the cap off the reservoir. And then this bolt comes out the back, and then we're going to use an Allen wrench to spread the pads. Obviously, as you spread the pads, it's going to push fluid into the reservoir, so make sure there's no overflow, or that's way at the top. 10 millimeter. This is it out. Of course, I'm going to clean this and apply some caliper grease to it as well. With the bolt out, you can pull up on here and lift this up. Now, I really struggled to get it out. It was pretty hard to get this to rotate. I do have the adjustment pin all the way out, so theoretically the pad should be spread as possible. Maybe it's just a bit sticky, but interesting, it was pretty hard. 14 millimeter, 14 millimeter. Those will come out to remove the actual complete caliper unit, so I can get the rotor off. This is one of the best money I ever bought. Getting that off is so easy with this. Getting it off with this, hard. After a bit of banging, bang, 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 it came loose. I'm going to tie this up now. That is very temporary. Use a bungee cord. Still have the other side of the car to do. They'll be banging. Sure, don't want that to fall. Taking a wire brush. I'm going to give these a good clean. I don't think it needs to be perfect, but get off all the big stuff. And then I'm going to come back with the rag dampened with brake cleaner and clean them up a little more before I put the new rotors on. Next, I'm going to spread the pads, but first I'm going to remove a bit of brake fluid. As when I spread the pads, it's going to increase the fluid to the reservoir. That is why I put a towel down. For this, spreading the pads, I'm using this tool here. I don't know, I think it was like $5 off Rock Auto. You needed to put both pads in there, one to press against the piston and the other for something for it to push against. A little tricky because I've never done it before, but next one should go easy. But that's how it works. Then you spin this to spread it. And new rotors. This one looks like it's got some scuffs from shipping. Hopefully that cleans off. They are. These what I have. And then obviously you're gonna clean them up real good. Make sure there's no shipping stuff on there. I don't think that's necessary with these rotors, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Put the new rotors on. Next, I'm gonna go through and grease and clean all the hardware, and then start putting things back together.
Pads installed, pretty easy, just make sure they're facing the right direction. And then in the little clips, pretty easy, clip them to the bottom, both sides. Next I just have to close it up, slide in the pin, which I think I'm gonna put even more grease on, and then done. First one done, pads installed, slider greased, torque down, not too bad. 3 more to go, then we bleed and flush. This is actually a new caliper. As I showed you earlier when I was pulling this up, I had much difficulty. Turns out this slider was stuck. It would not, oops, move back and forth. I tried really hard to get it to unstick, if that's a word, but it wouldn't work. I even hammered it like crazy. PB blaster. So new one, refurbished. It was like 65 bucks after the rebate for the core charge. So not too bad, works perfectly. It was pretty easy to install. First thing was this bracket. I took this bracket off, made it super easy for the emergency brake. Then I disconnected everything else, the 2 bolts in the back, had the pads out, etc. And then had it rest on this box, let it rest on box, installed the new caliper, installed the bracket onto the new caliper, and then when everything was ready to go, moved over the actual brake line to the new caliper. Important thing there is, if you notice, it goes banjo, it's the banjo bolt, but you have the copper crush washer and the copper crush washer on both sides. Without that, it will leak. Ask me how I know, but I figured it out. Now it's perfect and easy, just a dumb mistake. But now just put the pads in this one and we're about ready to go. All right, I have the springs installed. This is how the springs go. Honestly, I hated the stupid springs. If you know a good way to do it, let me know. But I sucked at it, took forever. And then I get one in, and then screw up on another one and knock that one out. But I got it. So what I didn't show was bleeding the brakes. Sorry, I got all caught up in the mess that was that rear caliper. It was jammed. Tried super hard to fix it. Could not. Put everything back together. Bled the brakes. Tried it. The wheel just, it wouldn't even spin. It was like jammed. I don't know how it was working before, but it's dead now. Replacing it was a good call. Bled the brakes. Pretty easy. Lots of videos on that. Chris Fix has a great video on it. For example, that's the one I referenced. Went out tonight. Once the roads were empty, out to an industrial area. Went out and slammed on the brakes from 40 miles an hour. I don't know, 15 times or so, and now they feel awesome. Brake pedal firmness is fantastic. Power is excellent. Super happy on it. Overall, this job was, to be honest, a little bit harder than I expected. But that being said, if I were to do it again, I'd probably do it a quarter of the time. It was just my first time doing it, and then I had so much issues with the rear caliper on the driver's side. But overall, super happy. Super glad I have this done. I think that's pretty much all the maintenance now. So pretty happy on that. Move on to little stuff, and then eventually lower this thing. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.